Yep. So moving on to Avery Davis.
Yes, Avery Davis.
That's the other bit of news.
And this is big news. And look,
not surprising, unfortunately.
We all saw it live, and Bryan and I both said it appeared that type of an injury kind of got twisted up.
Explain what you mean that type, because we did discuss it before the show.
Yeah, so it was a non-contact injury. I mean, nobody hit him, nobody rolled up on him or anything like that, and you could see his foot kind of get caught in the turf a little bit, and the way his knee kind of jerked, that's usually an ACL, and that's what it ended up being.
The hope is that it's not everything.
Right. Of course.
That was mine.
Because an ACL anymore in 2021 is completely rehabable within within 4 months, 4 to 6 months in that neighborhood. So he'll be ready to go.
15 years ago, he's out for this year and part of next year.
Absolutely.
Right now, it's at least he could come back and play. And so he's got some decisions, because Brian Kelly did say that Avery has a 6-year option.
I would love to have him back.
And we'll discuss it a little more as we kind of get into some of this stuff with his thing, which we're going to follow. That's exactly the next thing we're going to do. Then we're going to talk about some of the other comments afterwards. But
sure.
A week ago, I'd have said there's no reason for Avery Davis to come back. None.
Right.
Because he is what he is as a player, right?
For sure.
I mean, he is what he is. And I like what he is. But fifth-year senior, you're a team captain, you're a good football player and all that kind of stuff. There's no need to come back. That changes now because of the injury, because he was already sort of a borderline, was going to need a really good combine period to jump into the draft, in my opinion. Sure. I think he's draftable, but like is maybe a day 2, early day 3 guy. He was going to need some work, right? He was going to need to show that he's got 4.4 speed, that kind of thing, right? Which he does. Because he just doesn't have the production because of the way they use the slots, which it can be frustrating at times.
And the fact that he also moved to 14 different positions, and he just now is really settled in on receiver, right? I mean,
right. Well, but the reality is they should have used him more. He has 27 catches through 9 games. I'm sorry, he should be throwing the ball 2 more. But different conversation for a different day. The production's not there for him to just be, he's draftable. It's more, he's got he's did some nice things. He worked out at the pro day last year, if you remember, with Ian Book. He was going to need a good pro day. He was going to need a good combine to really to up his profile, and that's out now. He's not going to be healthy to start the season. That kills his draft value. So if there's room, and good Lord, there's room at receiver now.
There's so much room.
He's gonna. I would hope he would come back. Which is huge for Notre Dame if he can come back 100% next year.
Agreed.
Because he's a good football player.
Right.
He's a really good football player.
And
they're going to lose some leadership from this football team.
Yeah.
I don't think Kyron Williams comes back. That's just 100% my opinion, right? I don't think he comes back.
I would advise him not to.
Right. Jack Cohn is not going to be back. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some leadership gone from this football team. If you can get a guy like Avery Davis, former quarterback, 6th-year senior, captain, he'll be a 2-time captain.
Right.
That's going to really take some of that leadership burden off the shoulders of Tyler Buckner or Drew Pine, whoever the starting quarterback is next year.
Sure. They just worry about being the quarterback.
That's right. You just worry about doing your job, make the calls. Avery can give the pep talks. Avery can rally guys. Avery can handle all that. You just go do what you need to do.
Right.
So that was certainly a good to hear that Brian Kelly did bring that up. I would imagine it's at least going to have to be considered. It's not going to be considered right now by the family. They need to worry about getting his surgery and getting him healed.
Absolutely.
Beginning the rehab. And because they won't, to me, a lot of times you don't. And if there's any, and I know we have some doctors, but if there's any that specialize in this, my understanding is the MRI can tell you certain things, but whenever you open a person up, there's always a potential that there's something there that doesn't show up on the MRI or, you got to make sure the surgery goes well, all those type of things. But with Dr. Radigan, I mean, he's considered one of the best in the business. Yeah. So that's a good thing for all Notre Dame's players who are having surgeries is if it's not Dr. Radigan doing the surgery, he will go find the best in that particular thing to either be there. Like I remember there was an injury to an offensive lineman recently where I believe Dr. Radigan performed the surgery, but he brought in a specialist who specialized in that to be there during the surgery just to make sure if that was needed. Mm-hmm. First-class guy.
I love that guy so much.
First-class guy.
He comes on the show that we do during pregame about, I don't know, once every 3 weeks or so, just to kind of give a rundown and talk. And he is amazing. Like that guy is. I mean, he's a former player. For those that don't know,
Right.
he's a former Notre Dame football player. His son is a walk-on. As part of that podcast that they do. And I mean, he's obviously done the right thing in raising his kids, and he's a great doctor and he's a great man. So yeah, I agree with you. So
what Brian Kelly said in the press conference is the first thing is obviously Lorenzo Styles moves inside, and that's obvious. I mean, no brainer. Lorenzo can play that. There's no doubt about that. The interesting thing is gives you a little more size at receiver now because Lorenzo's bigger than Avery, and then you've got Braden Lindsey outside. Braden's a little taller than Avery, not bigger, but taller. He noted that you could move, you could do some things where you put Kevin Austin at X, which kind of spells Braden Lindsey and all that, and which you need to do because Braden Lindsey's not an every down player, as we've been saying since the summer.
We've talked about that for a long time.
He talked about that would then trigger Deion Colsey to play more in the W. I think Deion's getting better and better every week, which is great. So imagine what's great what happens when guys actually get to play. You get to learn from your mistakes and all that, which you can only do when you play. Then he also talked about using Michael Mayer in the slot more, which is a plus, and then of course Kyron. So those are the things Brian Kelly talked about, Vince. I want to discuss two things now. I want to discuss. We're going to kind of move on for this particular topic. We're going to move past what Brian Kelly said, and we're going to talk about what we want to see and what we think about the receiver position this year and next, based on this Avery injury. Yeah. Before we do, I just want to get a couple super chats here real quick.
Yes.
John Nestler said, just joined IB site this morning. He did. Boom. He signed up with an annual membership. I used to have rivals years ago, but thrilled to be part of the family. Thanks, Bryan and Vince, and we're thrilled to have you as part of the family, John.
So, welcome, John.
Thank you for that very, very much. And yes, he did sign up this morning. I'm going to put the link in there again because that actually seemed to be helpful to people. It's as opposed to having to remember the boards.com and all that other kind of stuff. So I'll put that in at the bottom for people that want to join. But we have another super chat from Clint Duggar. Don't get live too often, but I still watch every show. Love you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Clint.
Appreciate that. And I'm glad you could be part of the live show today. So that's good too. So Vince, I want to talk first about what I think we need to see more from Notre Dame.
So he never mentioned bringing somebody over to the wide receiver group, or
he did not,
because he hinted around at it post game.
He did not. Okay. My thought would be, number one, if that move was being made, it was going to be a depth move. I didn't see, but I also wonder if part of it was he just in his head's thinking they're going to move Xavier Watts over, and I can name 3 people that want no part of Xavier Watts moving back to offense.
One of them, Xavier Watts,
Marcus Freeman. Chris O'Leary, Xavier Watts.
Well, he made it pretty clear that it wasn't going to be like he said. Xavier's integral part of the defense. We hope to, he made it pretty clear. I think that obviously was not going to be the case. Yeah, so that's good.
So that was good. I was glad to see that.
Yes.
Couple other things to me. So as I look at it, I think the first thing is this is why. I remember when we were talking this summer about all the receivers that left the program. And then because they lost, 4 over the summer, right? Micah Jones left. Jay Brunell left. Jordan Johnson left. And I think there was Kendall Abdur-Rahman. Could really use Kendall Abdur-Rahman right about now. Well, he never played. They got Avery Davis. No big deal. And then you then lose Lawrence Keys because you didn't feel it was important enough to treat him the right way to make him feel like part of the team. You lose him. And normally I hate it when players leave their team in the middle of the year. Hate it. That was one where I completely understood. Anytime a coach goes to the point where he's no longer being truthful to you,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
You got to go, right?
Yeah.
Or not that you got to go, but I understand you going. So, and every single time, the response from the people that just wanted everything is awesome, just say, hey, you know what? He wasn't going to help. He's no good. They already got this guy. They're okay there. Well, those things pile up, right? And now you're in a situation where you lose Joe Wilkins, you lose Avery Davis, and now you have 5 healthy scholarship receivers.
Correct.
You have the veterans are actually is it 5? You have Kevin Austin.
Correct.
You have Braden Lindsey, healthy. Okay. So the two guys that have the biggest injury history are the last two veterans left. Okay. And then you have the three freshmen.
Right.
That's
That's
it.
five. And
That's it.
Jaden Thomas,
Kelly talked about him today. Yeah.
Did he talk about him? Because I had heard that they had
he
decided
just
to
said that he'd
redshirt
been
him.
on scout team and he's up now to help with depth.
Okay.
But he's been in and out all year. I mean, he's been banged up all year. So that's it. That's your at the University of Notre Dame, because you lost 5 players during the offseason. This is where you're at. And so the problem that has existed here for a while now has truly come to fruition this season. And if this isn't the wake up call that Brian Kelly needs, I don't know what else to do.
Sure.
I don't know what else to say or what else to do about this. So it's a problem, but hey, it is what it is, right? So let's talk about what needs to happen today. And so first and foremost, I look at this and say clearly Lorenzo Styles to the slot is a good move, because you can't just eliminate 11 personnel. But here's the reality. When you have 5 scholarship receivers, one of them has not played a meaning. I don't think Jaden Thomas has played yet this year. I don't think. He might have got in the fourth. I mean, I don't even think what fourth quarter game could he have got in. I mean, the Wisconsin's game is the only one that was really a blowout. I don't even know if he's played yet this year, which adds to my frustration when you think about how many teams with a losing record Notre Dame has on their 9-team resume, that they don't have any games that they could have just, until Saturday to blow a team out. But anyway, he's just not really going to be a guy that I think steps in just automatically and can give you 20 snaps a game, right? So 11 personnel is still something you can use, but it's not something you can use as the primary part of the offense in regards to a volume standpoint. Does that make sense, Vince?
Yeah,
you're still going to use it. It's still a very important part of what you do, but I don't know if you can, use it for 75, 80% of the snaps like they have at times this season. You still use it, but maybe it's only 20 snaps of 11 personnel this now.
Yeah.
I think obviously the other option is, you could use Michael Mayer more in the slot, but that's where the decision has to get made.
Right.
How do you get Michael Mayer in the slot? And there's 2 ways to do it. One is to go 12 personnel, put George Takis in the game or Mitchell Evans in the game and use them as the number 2 tight end. Right. The other one is to go 21 personnel.
Right.
And I think that's the direction Notre Dame needs to go. To me, because you have – and Kelly talked today too. He talked about Chris Tyree, how the turf toe thing, it's something he's battling back from. It's something he dealt with in high school that cost him time. But he talked about how, if you remember the play on Saturday, they brought a corner blitz, and the only running back to step up and pick that up on Saturday was Chris Tyree. Stepped up and drilled the guy. And Kelly talked about how that was important for them and for Chris.
Sure.
Because to block like that, because he didn't just catch the guy, he struck the guy. You remember the play I'm talking about?
He put him on his back too, didn't he? I mean, it was yeah, right.
And Kelly talked about how that requires you to really plant and drive off your feet like any blocker. And how that was sort of that thing in Chris's mind. It was like, okay, I'm fine. And for them, it was the thing that shows he's fine. So you've got Chris Tyree coming back. Logan Diggs has played great football. You've got Kyron Williams, and you have Audric Estime. To me, 3 of those guys can catch the ball really well. 2 of those guys can catch the ball outside. Now, there's a lot of talk from people about, well, just move Chris Tyree to the slot. That only works as a sort of a complement to him being a running back, because Kyron Williams could be a slot receiver. He could be a legitimate slot receiver. That he knows how to run routes. He knows how to catch the ball down the field. Chris can do some things, but I don't know if Chris is a natural slot receiver. I mean, there's a slot receiver requires a lot of precision. You got to know how to get off jams. You got to know how to react to buzzing linebackers. You've got to know how to, my stem starts here. This guy works there. I got to react my stem this way, to either dip inside or push him outside, understand the whole pass concept and all that kind of stuff. You just can't plug a guy, put him at slot and say, hey, that you haven't been playing receiver all year. And you're going to be fine. We're going to go beat
You'll be good. You'll be good.
Now can you do that at times? Absolutely. There are things you can do with him in the slot. There's quick game things you can do. There's screen games you can do. There's jet sweep things you can do. There's things you can do, wheel route. There's some creativity that you can have, but it's going to have to be a package for him in the slot. It's not him being a slot receiver now.
Correct.
I also don't necessarily want Chris Tyree, blocking out in space and stalk blocking, because the problem is when you get a guy that stalk blocking on the perimeter requires work and understanding because that's a position where knees get rolled up on all the time.
Sure.
Receivers practice that stuff and they understand how to handle that, right? It comes from experience. And so to me, it's about finding a niche for him there, also using Kyron Williams in the slot there, and then using Audric Estime and Logan Diggs as running backs with those guys. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be completely opposed if they just wanted to say, hey, we need to find ways to get Michael Mayer a breather without going to the 12 and 13 personnel, because if they don't know that formation group just doesn't really work effectively against any good team yet, then there's no hope, right? They've got to be able to look at that and say, no, it's not going to work. I mean, I would not be opposed, Vince, if they went a couple plays of 30 personnel, meaning get Michael Mayer out. Again, meaning, because you're trying to get 5 to 10 snaps of him on the sideline to catch, get a breather, get some wear and tear off of his legs, right? It's not about taking Michael Mayer out for any reason other than like when you'd sub him out.
Right.
And instead of saying we're going to go to George Takis, who we just won't throw the ball to, right? They just refuse to do that. They did it once. He made a good catch. George can play, but they just, they're not going to use him. Mitchell Evans is a good kid, and he's a freshman, but he's not ready yet for that kind of role. And he's just not. You look at the guys, Logan Diggs, Chris Tyree, Kyron Williams are all better players than anybody else that could possibly fill Avery Davis's spot other than Lorenzo Styles.
Right.
So to me, I would even get creative with that. Now, when I talk 30 personnel, I mean, there's so much you could do. It sounds like people laugh. You ever watch Oklahoma State? You ever watch Oklahoma State back in the early 2010s in the mid, when they were like really a dynamic offense? They would line up in that diamond personnel. Now they would have a receiver there, right? They'd have 2 backs and a receiver. Well, with the type of running backs Notre Dame has, guys can catch the ball. Why not do that? I mean, because you're now throwing some of people that they don't know what to do.
Exactly.
They're going to be unprepared for that, and you have some fun with it. There's things you can do out of it. You can line up in 30 personnel in a diamond formation. A diamond formation is like a pistol, right? So the quarterback and the tailback, it's a pistol for them. But what you have is to each side of the quarterback, you have a running back. It's called a diamond formation, and then outside receivers. You could do that. You could line up the next play with in a normal shotgun with a back to each side, and another back, the third back in the slot. It could be Kyron, it could be Tyree, and then the next play you could line up with Audric Estime or Logan Diggs as your single back, and you have Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree in the slots. You can do all that without rotating personnel, and they can effectively do those kind of things. So
absolutely,
the reality is this ideal to lose Avery Davis? Heck no. Great leader, great kid.
Yeah.
Heart hurts for him because, all these kids are great kids and all that kind of stuff. But like his story is so unique and what he sacrificed. I hate to see this happen to him.
I agree.
But and not that I ever am happy that a kid gets injured, but it just some sting a little bit more.
Absolutely.
It was that way as a coach as well. But this one stings for Avery.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the point is, as a football team, you got to move forward. Hey, he's out. It doesn't mean that it's not like roll him off the field. We're going to keep going because we don't care, right? It's just he's out. Here we go. And so to me, that's something that I want to see. I want to see some of that. I would even do that out of 31 personnel, Vince, that you went to earlier, because then you could put Michael Mayer outside.
Exactly.
There's just so many things you could do. And if you did it with Audric Estime as one of your 3 backs, you could then line him up outside on like a wing and use him to block like you did earlier.
Yeah, I think that's untapped. I'm surprised they actually haven't done that because that they were they went to it
you
so
gotta
much.
Be creative, Vince, right? It's kind of like the only thing holding back from Notre Dame being more explosive and being more versatile and creative is their lack of creativity.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I hope that Tommy Rees comes into the office yesterday, because it starts yesterday and today. And he's like, you know what, man, we're out this guy. We're going to have some fun. Right. Because here's what every coach should do. Every offensive coach should do when they meet on Sunday or Monday, start going over the game plan. Who do we have to get the football to this weekend? And they're going to, and a lot of times, like place I've been, it's like you kind of list your top 5 playmakers. You got to make sure that in some way they're all, if you start doing that, you're going to go, there's going to be a lot of running backs in that group. You know what I mean? Okay, Kevin Austin, out receiver. I don't know if there's another guy that I would put in there. Not that Lorenzo and Lindsey can't do some things. Okay, Mayer. All right. Kyron, no brainer. Okay, who's your next? Tyree, okay. Diggs, okay. And then you talk about Lindsey. I mean, there's some things you can do to where even with all those injuries, you still got some dudes there. Right?
Absolutely.
So now the only thing that's going to limit you is your own lack of creativity and your own inability to install it. I mean, to me, I would look at this as fun. I would look at this as encouraging.
Yeah.
I would say, hey, there's not a lot of film of Deion Colsey. There's not a lot of film of Audric Estime. There's not a lot of film of 30 personnel. And people, I'm not joking when I say that. I'm not joking at all. In today's college football, if you don't know how in an sort of an everything has gone wrong situation to be able to use the kind of running backs that Notre Dame has beyond just rotating them in with each other, then you don't understand the exciting aspects of today's modern football.
Absolutely agree.
And the things that the evolution of the game allow you to do. And so to me, the only thing holding them back is their own lack of creativity and ability to install it. I mean, and again, you don't do it all in one game, right? You find, okay, let's start with something niche-y this game, and then you build on it next week. So, like, you're not going to go to the Diamond 30 personnel package and put in 25 new plays.
Right.
But there's things that they already know that you can do.
Sure.
And that's what I would like to see.
And I think
Virginia's not going to they're not going to be prepared for it at all.
But I think the important thing is you can come up with some new formations and some, just like you said, some new personnel, but then you still run your stuff. Like the whole thing.
You need to have some wrinkles out of it, though.
Right. Now, I get that, but 25 plays aren't wrinkles. That's a whole package.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you need to be able to run your stuff out of these wrinkles and then have a few things off of it. And I think they can easily do that in a week. Easily. Because like you said, Virginia's more worried about who they're starting at quarterback than they are about anything else right now, right? I mean,
right.
So yeah, I would definitely have something because you do have some dynamic playmakers at running back that you can get on the field, that can catch the football, and they can do things outside the tackle box. And if they don't do that, then I'm really scratching my head as to what they're doing.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the only thing. If all they do is just plug Lorenzo Styles in there and play more 12 personnel, it's like you guys lack.
How is that the solution?
You lack the creativity necessary to be a dynamic offense. And Brian Kelly said it today. He's like, hey, look, Notre Dame is whatever and when they score more than 30 points a game. If that's not like an awareness of, then start freaking being a more dynamic offense.
Right.
You're
not going to score more than 30 in 12 and 13 personnel all day.
Right.
You're
not against anybody good, not this group. And it's not even that and again, when we say that, this is not a shot on George Takis or Mitchell Evans, it's about you as a coach have to look at who are our best players.
Right.
Last year, if you have a conversation about your top 7 or 8 players, there was a few tight ends that needed to be part of that conversation.
Right.
In other years, that it's not the case. This is one of those years where it's not the case. And it's not just about those guys, but it's about you have a very dynamic backfield. You have one of the best running back groups in the country.
Exactly.
You're not using it correctly. Now, again, okay, Chris Tyree's banged up. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there because my sources told me that it was a situation where Chris wasn't healthy. It was not a doghouse thing or anything like that. But he's back now. You said he's back now to feeling better. And even if Chris can only give you 12 to 15 snaps, be creative with those. Here's the thing. If you know Chris Tyree is limited, don't waste those snaps on having him step up and pass pro. That's a waste of snap, in my opinion. Even though he could do it, it's a waste of a snap. What I want to see them do is say, hey, if we only got Chris Tyree for 15 snaps, then we're going to darn sure make sure he touches the ball on 5, at least on 5 to 6 of those.
Yep.
Whether it's jet sweeps, screens, handoffs, whatever the case may be, they've got to start getting Chris Tyree more touches, right? And then you can allow Logan and Kyron to get their touches in the more traditional running back things if Chris is limited. And now's the perfect. Now, a week ago, it would have been harder to do that because we can take Avery Davis off the field. I'm not taking Avery Davis off the field.
Exactly.
For that.
He's your most consistent receiver right now.
Correct.
But now you don't have a choice.
He's also your most money receiver. If it's 3rd and 5, there's only 2 people I'm looking at on 3rd and 5. It's Michael Mayer and Avery Davis, right?
Exactly.
That's it.
Yep.
Well, Avery's not there now.
Right.
So you got to figure something else out. And so to me, that's the key is, okay, we don't have Avery. Because like when something like this happens, Vince, as an offensive, when you've lost Joe Wilkins, you've now lost Avery Davis, you've lost Lawrence Keys, you've lost so much of your depth. You almost got to take what you've done all year and you just got to be like, okay.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, that's what you got to do. Okay, fellas, when I say start from scratch, it's not, okay, what plays do we want to run? We're now going to become a pin and pull team that's going to run air raid principles. That's not what I'm talking about. It's what's your overarching, here's how we're game planning that you've been doing all year. It's gone. You got to start fresh. Okay, here's our best players. Okay, how do we best utilize our best players within the framework of play of what we do, and what are some new wrinkles that we can add? And again, it's a couple run plays here, it's a screen here, it's a couple pass plays here. It's not reinventing the wheel, but you do it, to your point, out of formations that they're not prepared for, and that's how you catch them in a leverage situation, a matchup situation, things like that. And so, to me, that's going to be the key. How creative do you want to be, right? And with your personnel and how you use that personnel. And you know, if Tommy Rees does that, I'm going to lose it this weekend. I'm going to be so fired up. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm buying you all the beanies you want, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm super fired up about it. I think I think he can. I think he's got the mind for it, but he's just got to step up and say, hey, coach, this is what we got to do, man. Right? We got stud running backs. You want, from what I'm told, his closest ally as far as like his trust on the staff in regards to play calling and game planning is Lance Taylor.
Yep.
If those two guys, Lance Taylor's the freaking running backs coach.
Right.
If those two guys can't say, hey, man, what's the best position group we have on offense? Does anyone want to tell me it's anything other than running back? It's not.
Right.
How can we use it better other than just traditional methods of swings and handoffs and some slip screens? It's 2021. You got to be more creative with how you use it. Right. And that's just a fact. And so that's what I want to see this weekend.
Agreed.
And it doesn't have to necessarily look just like what I think. Tom Rees is a smart guy. Lance Taylor's a smart guy. They may have other ideas on how to use 2-3 running backs. And it's not like if they come out this weekend and I'm like, you know what? They didn't run diamond personnel. They suck. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just giving you kind of things that pop into my head as I think about it, right? It doesn't have to look like that. As long as it's creative and it's meant to get your best players the ball, and it's meant to create havoc for Virginia. And then now all of a sudden Georgia Tech and Stanford are like, oh crap. We thought we had Notre Dame figured out. Now they come up in this freaking 30 personnel and 31 personnel, and they're doing reads and they're doing all this other kind of stuff. I mean, and that's the other thing too. Everybody knows I'm, Jack Cohn starting quarterback. The first time that I'm going 30-31 personnel on Saturday against Virginia, 12's a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Virginia's be like, okay, what the
heck?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, what do we do now? Holy crap. And you know what?
Yep.
And then I'm having throwing it too.
And I'm going to have them do a buck sweep here. Like, seriously.
Right.
Okay, you line up in diamond personnel, right? So you can kind of read it out here. You got a tailback. I'm going to have him read this way and then run speed option away. Right? You jab with that back, right? And then you can have so much fun with it. I mean,
dude, absolutely.
and you just do it for a series. You just come out and say, hey, and you let Jack know, hey, Jack, third chair's the game. We're going diamond. We're putting Tyler in the game. Okay? Just, and we're going to go fast. Now, if we get stalled, we're going to put you back in, but you're going back in that next series, right? Or it may just be 3 plays. Hey, we're doing 3 or 4 plays, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Right. You can do things like that. And now Virginia's like, what the freaking heck? So then here's the thing. Virginia's going to spend that whole next defensive series, that whole next period between series.
Drawing up how they're going to defend
How they're going to defend it.
Right.
And then you come back with 12 personnel and run it right down their freaking throat and take a couple play action shots, right?
Right.
I mean, or go 11 personnel and you're in a more traditional offense.
Right.
I mean, that's what good coaches do. That's what creative coaches do. I want to see Tommy Rees do that because I do believe Tommy is a smart, creative guy. I just want to see him be like, hey, dude, you're a college coach. Go have some fun this weekend, right? Go have some fun. You don't have Avery anymore to build around because you needed to build around. I mean, I'm arguing that they need to use Avery more. He's not there now. Go have some fun, right?
Yep.
Go make the Virginia coaches just be like, what the freaking heck was that, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so that's what I need to see. If they just come out in their traditional 11, 12, 21, like, and just run the same stuff they've been running. Just, hey, Lorenzo, go. Hey, true freshman Lorenzo, go pretend you're a fifth-year senior.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
That's what I would like to see. So that's our talk on the Vince. You have anything to add to that? I got a little fired up there with that. So,
and I was just, if I had popcorn, I would have just been, because I was enjoying it. Because you're absolutely, I got this vision actually when you were talking about it, of you and I sitting at a table, just like drawing some stuff up. Like, all right, you know what, this would be really cool to do. All right,
yeah,
like that. That is when I always had the most fun coaching. Is when you're your backs are up against it a little bit, and now it's time to be creative. Let's go have some fun with it. And you sit down and you collaborate and you put your heads together and you come up with something. Like that's when coaching is fun to me personally, And so like, that's when I was like, okay, let's go. Yeah. So I'm hoping that that's, what Notre Dame does. Mm-hmm. I would honestly be surprised if it is. I fully anticipate seeing like 12 and 13 personnel on a Saturday. I just make me a believer, Tommy Reese. Make me a believer. That's what I will say to that, because they've got the guys to do it, and it can be so much fun to watch if they wanted to do it. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Yep.